Most of you, well, all of you know me since I've been here, and it's definitely God has completely changed me. So I wanted to share some of the things that you don't know about, which happened before I became a Christian. And I'll tell you, well, probably shock some of you, but I became a Christian on the 17th of October 1998. I was 30 years old. So I'd spent 30 years serving somebody else, and as we all know, that's not really a good side to serve. I didn't know it at the time. I grew up as a non-Christian in the UK, in England, small town. My dad was very anti-Christian, so was my mum. There's no saved people in my family. I think this, from my dad's side, had rubbed off on me because I became to dislike Christians and dislike anybody who had any religion. Most of the people who are around that we know are Christians, so Christians got the brunt of my nastiness, if you like, which came from my father. So be careful, parents, what you do to your children will copy what you do, so because I did that. And we only ever went to church when we were burying family members, or marrying family members, or when the school forced us to, which was at Easter and Christmas, and they were cold churches, stone old English churches, and kids don't want to go there. You weren't allowed to wear your coat. It was just no good memories at all. Would you believe that throughout my time, from when I was young through to when I got a job, I knew not one single Christian person. None of my friends were Christian. None of my family was Christian. When I got a job at 18 in the City of London, I didn't know one single person who said, I go to church on a Sunday. It was, for a country that's supposed to be Christian, sadness and shame, really. So I'd never even really come across any Christians, because nobody would ever tell me they were a Christian. In fact, after I did become a Christian, one of my very good friends told me, actually, I'd been a Christian, but I was too scared to tell you. Yeah, that's how nasty I was. I wasn't a very nice person. In the early years, I've been blessed with a good job. I didn't know it at the time, but I was working for Midland Bank, and I was one of their youngest managers at the age of 20. It was far too young to be a manager. But I had a nice house, I lived on a canal, I had a boat, I had a car. At the age of 21, I had everything, really. I had a huge, a big salary, had a nice job. When I got to Hong Kong, travelling in '96, it got worse. I got an even better job, a more exciting job. I was earning 5 times the salary I was earning as a bank manager for working in Hong Kong, which was over $100,000 a month, and I paid $3,000 in rent. So I could not spend the money. It was just flowing in. So what was I using the money for? Partying, drinking, doing all the things that non-Christians do because they think that's normal and they think it's fantastic. But it's not. I thought I was happy. I had everything I wanted. And I mocked everyone that was religious. Anybody said anything to me about being, whether they were Muslims or whether they were Indians or whatever, Hindus, anything, I would be nasty and unpleasant to them. And unfortunately, there was a group of Christians on the island where I lived, of which John Branch and his family were part of that group. And I used to be so nasty to these people. I had to walk past them every time I went to the ferry. And I would be nasty behind their backs and horrible. And one of the people in this, it was a missionary group, the English Language Association, and they did mission works in China for orphans. And one of them was a lady who I met. I thought, okay, I'm going to make it my goal to take this person away from God. I'm going to drag her away. That's what because all she would do is talk to me about God. And so I made it my goal to do that. And I was constantly making fun of her. Every time she said anything to do with God, I would take the mickey out of it. She introduced me to her family. They were wonderful Christian brothers. They invited me into the house. They let me drive their cars. I stayed in their houses. They took me out to restaurants, and all I would do was make fun of their Christian belief. We came out of a restaurant once and we couldn't get it. It must have been a 20-minute wait. Couldn't get, there was no taxis coming at all in the middle of Perth, Australia. And suddenly they got down on their knees and said, we're going to pray for a taxi. And I laughed. And they said, don't laugh, the next car around this corner will be a taxi. And I said all sorts of horrible things to them. The next car came around the corner was a taxi. What did I do? Did I say it? No, I just mocked it and said, this is just chance, this has nothing to do with it. After 6 months back in Hong Kong, it was actually on my mum's birthday, I met this lady for dinner on Lama Island. And we went for dinner and I took the mickey out of her as I usually did. I said, have you spoken to God on the God telephone this week? And she said to me, yes, I have actually, but I wasn't going to tell you. And I said, has God said anything then? And she said, yes. And she said, God gave me 2 words for you. And she told me these 2 words, and it shut me straight up. I didn't say anything else for the rest of the meal, because what she told me cut to my heart. I'd had questions that I'd never asked anybody about, started to ask about God, and these questions answered straight away in 2 words, and it just shut me straight up. Well, it was about a 2-kilometre walk back through the jungle to go home, and on the way home on the path I thought, my goodness, this means God is real, and if God is real, then the Bible's real, and if the Bible's real, that means heaven's real, and if heaven's real, then hell's real. And if hell's real, then I'm going to hell. I'm seriously going to hell for what I've done. So I needed to take action in order to make sure I got to heaven, because I'm not a very clever person, but I'm not stupid either. And I knew that I needed to make sure I'm on the right team, and I wasn't on the right team, not by a long way. So on the path, I stopped in the middle of the night and just I said the sinner's prayer. I said, Lord, forgive me, please. I'm a sinner. I've ignored you and I've said bad things about you. Please, Lord, come into my heart. I know you died for me on the cross, Lord. I know that you rose again for me to save me, Lord. And I pray you'll come into my heart. You'll be with me, Lord. You'll lead me, Lord. And then I carried on walking. And a few steps later, I just happened to look up and noticed the incredible array of stars in the sky, which I'd never noticed before. And I stopped and I looked up and I looked around, and the animals in the jungle on the paths, there were geckos and the beetles and cricket, and they're singing away, and just like the sound was just so overwhelming, and it's as if you just changed from watching normal television and then gone HD. Everything suddenly became super high quality, and it was just like I think God was showing me, God opening, look at what I've created. This is amazing, and you never even saw it before. And I had this overwhelming flow of joy to suddenly come over me and flood me with joy. It was in an evening, and I went back home, and I got home, and it was quite late, and I was on my own in the house in Lama, and I thought I'd been drinking a little bit, so I thought, well, just in case God didn't hear me, I'd better say the sinner's prayer again. I got down on my knees and on my own, and I said the sinner's prayer again, all over again. I thought, okay, well, God heard me that time, so I'll be all right now. So, but I said to God, I don't want to tell anybody I became a Christian. I don't want people telling me what I should do or how. I don't want them putting thoughts in my mind. So I just said, Lord, please show me one miracle every day. Let me know you are here, you are real. And I said, I'm not going to tell anyone, and I'm definitely not going to church because I don't want any of that. So 4 days later, I'd had a miracle every day, and I couldn't hold it back anymore. So I phoned the missionary group and I told them, and of course they were happy. I phoned my family, they laughed. It wasn't a good laugh. I thought, okay, fair enough. And God had blessed me, and then 2 months later I came to church here in Lighthouse. I was saying I'd never go to church, and that was the first day I met my beautiful wife Rose. We've been married 10 years. Without a doubt, the 2 best things that God has ever given me is, 1, my salvation, 2 is Rose as my wife, so that's a blessing. Now, the other thing that the missionary group told me was that when I'd seen them, again, this was about 6 months it took before I became a Christian, they said to me, almost every day people have been praying for you. I thought, my goodness, even now I think, I pray for a week and I think I've done a really good job for someone. It's like John and Jenny said, they still pray for Brother Philip. These people faithfully prayed for me, and I'm here because these people never stopped praying for me. Because I was a nasty, evil person in my heart. Although I smiled, the heart was not right. So please, if I can learn anything from don't give up praying for people, even if they're nasty like me, because you will save, you'll save the people that you pray for. Well, over the next few years, God took away all the wealth that I'd amassed, and took everything that I'd bought of value, just took it away. Took me down. The business failed. Didn't have enough money to pay the rent. And God's miracles and God's faith were teaching me by example. Just when, literally 1 month, there was not enough money to pay the rent, didn't know what I was going to do, and the church blessed. I received an offering just out of the blue, and it was exactly the money that I needed that I worked out to pay the rent. I'd gone to a point where I had no more food in the house at this point. I had no meal in the evening, which is, I'm diabetic, so I need to eat. So I was going to have to eat something like sugar or honey or something. Praying again, asking Lord what I do next. And then the next thing you know, my Chinese landlady doesn't speak a word of English, knock on the door, bowl of food, and a big smile. I'm like, my goodness, praise the Lord. You know, God had showed these examples, and He faithfully gave me back replacements for all the things that I thought were valuable, but the replacements I've got now are much better. And they came from Him, so that's how I know. Now, I've been a Christian now, it'll be 13 years next month, and God has faithfully taken both Rose and I through some very, very, very tough times and some very, very good times. He's healed me when the doctors have said that there are problems with my diabetes. He's one time, right, you've got to go and see a specialist, you've got a problem. Next thing, no more problem. Answers to prayers. He's given us peace, and He's given us conviction when we've done things that He's not really pleased with, and we've been able to apologise for those. I know God will always be there for Rose and I. He is our rock. He is our strong foundation. He's our shield in time of trouble, and He's the one who gives us peace.